All right, so continuing sleep this week, I want to talk about insomnia. And specifically, I want to break actually apart the two main kinds of insomnia people experience and talk briefly about what to do. The first is what we often call initial insomnia, trouble falling asleep. This is the one that you typically hear about when people talk about sleep hygiene, when people market these various drugs like Ambien to take. These are all to help you fall asleep. And all of those things are great approaches. The one caveat being that there is another piece of anxiety that is often there and not talked about. And when that's the case, addressing that anxiety, and I have other videos talking about that, is something that will often need to be done as well, while the various techniques of sleep hygiene and the various medications and supplements might help you in the meantime. We can talk more about that in another video. The other one I want to talk about, though, that is not discussed as much is what's called terminal insomnia. This is difficulty staying asleep. And there's a couple factors here that make it more difficult to address. The first is you can't take a medication to often stay asleep because you're asleep, right? So let's say you're going to wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning. You'd want to take a medication an hour before that. You can't because you're sleeping. And a lot of the extended release medications really don't actually help that much because they just don't last long enough to keep you asleep. This kind of insomnia, though, is typically related to mood issues like depression. So addressing those is what's going to help you often long term in staying asleep. And there's another caveat here. Let me show you a graph that I had in a previous video. So if you look at this graph of the sleep cycles, the one I want to point out is right around 3:30 a.m. for a 12 a.m. falling asleep. You'll see there's a little jump that goes back to awake on that track there. See, after the second REM cycle. See that? So here's the thing about that. It is actually extremely normal and typical for you to briefly wake up after 2 45-ish minute sleep cycles each night. All right, sometimes 3. So if you wake up a few hours into the night, that is something that is normal, and sometimes understanding that can be helpful because when you have trouble falling asleep, the moment you wake up, your initial reaction is often one of an anxious, oh my God, my insomnia is back again. And at least noting that that is a normal physical thing can be helpful. Anyway, almost out of time, so please follow, like, and comment on what else you'd like me to discuss here.